share with whoever would find it. But maybe they weren't the prehistoric cavemen that we really think about. They could have been the survivors of, of what happened.
Absolutely.
I
think that's absolutely possible and probable. I think that, when you look at the number of different human species that were part of the Homo family, but not Homo sapiens, now we're the only species that we know of. I personally do believe that there may be pockets of ancient hominids reflected in the sightings of things like the Yeti, the Bigfoot, the skunk ape in Florida, the abominable snowman, or others. The orang pendat, or whatever it's called in Malaysia, orang pendat. The thing that's interesting to me is when they found those bones in Florence of the hobbits, I think, and when you read these legends of giants that were known to be part of, at least American history and all over the world, and, frankly, at some level, you got to ask yourself, who was Goliath, right? He came from the Philistines, and he was a giant man. And if you look at his history and his brothers and he was described as, he may have been an actual giant, one of the survivors of an ancient species. And so think about the world back then and all these different kinds of hominids running around. It would have felt like a Lord of the Rings movie. You had these tiny little humans and you had gigantic ones, and maybe some of them were more wild and some were more cultured. And if one of those various species happened to have a larger brain system, or frankly they don't even need a larger system, they just happen to have advanced themselves the same way we have, they very well could have been the few survivors left after a cataclysm, and then they took it upon themselves to try and re-educate the world. There is a theory I heard that I have never heard a better theory when it came to the pyramids. And not many people have heard this, I think, because I've done a lot of research on the pyramids, and I've only heard this once. And I'll keep it short, but the idea is if an ancient culture knew that there was going to be a flood, whether that's from a comet hitting or whatever, and there was going to be atmospheric disturbances that would create sulfuric rain and pollution and all the things you would expect to happen on the surface of the world, they would create these underground areas for people to live in. Well, you find, in fact, there's a report of ginormous underground cities in the Giza Plateau under the pyramids. You also find the same thing in Turkey, and you find the same thing in what's called Malta, right? And all these places, and in India, you find these places that are far underground. In China, there's these Gojang caves that are ginormously huge and beautifully carved by people we don't even know who carved the insides of them.
Yeah, and how would they have the technology back then? That's the interesting part. You look at the walls; they're all have parallel scoring marks that look like a giant drill. Oh yeah, even in Greece, there was places in Greece. I was reading where a guy in Greece, through his house, he had a problem, and all of a sudden he found this shaft, and it went into like an underground city where they had rooms, they had all this stuff. And how could they do it with this, a hammer? Not even a hammer, a rock and whatever they used to chisel. Mm-hmm. They couldn't. They had to have technology to, go through all that stone to create all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, ask yourself, where is all that stone? Right? I mean, they hollowed it out. They carried out tons of stone, and yet we don't find fields of, powdered rock or rock just in piles and dumps and hills. Like, what happened to it all? But what I was going to say about the pyramids is those pyramids and their casing stones and the limestone, right below them is a giant aquifer, a huge one that holds quadrillion gallons of water. So if you have polluted rain hitting those pyramids become giant filters. They take the water off their surfaces, they drop them, they drip them like a percolation through a drip coffee maker into the aquifers below, creating fresh water for the underground inhabitants for years. That's what I think ultimately people aren't realizing how much knowledge there must have been back then to create a system to keep humanity alive in the face of something that clearly was cataclysmic on a worldwide basis.
Yeah, I mean, if it just only happened, like, with, say, with the pyramids, but it happened, just not like where the pyramids are. It happened in Mexico. It happened in Greece. It happened in, all South America even. I mean,
right.
But these, also going back to these caves for a minute, these caves are not little caves. I was looking at one time here recently that it would hold thousands of people. And it was like stores, like, set up in rooms, and and all this stuff, just all carved out. Which, how long would it took them? If they were doing it, like, again with this stones and trying to chisel it out, they couldn't have created that. That would have took them thousands of years. So whatever technology they had, they did it pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, listen to this. I mean, in Turkey, they have uncovered the largest underground city ever. It is 200 cities and villages that stretch over 7 kilometers, and that's amazing. I mean, that's Earth movement at a scale that, you're right. Even today, I hesitate ever to say we couldn't do it today. Where there's a will, there's a way, and I think we would find a way to do it. But you're right about one thing. We don't normally do it today. That's for sure. When you talk about moving something heavy like a big rock, it becomes an actual, like, event that news covers because it's not normally done, and we have to come up with ways to do it that haven't been done before. I think human ingenuity is really amazing. But what I wonder, and I think you've nailed it, how did they do it back then without machines?
That's
just
the whole point.
Impossible.
I mean, a couple of underground cities they have built, both in Russia and in the United States, to protect, our scientists, our leaders, world leaders, and stuff like that. It took a mass amount of money. It took mass amount of years to create it, and for them to do what they did. Maybe it's not, like what our current stuff is, but even to do what they had to have some type of technology to be able to cut through that stone and remove it, the weight of it, and to create it that fast. Like I said, it would take thousands of years with that type of technology they had, trying to do it by hand to make some of them that big. Yeah.
And, if you look at, like, Darren Kuyu, I think, is the place you may have been thinking about earlier, and that's or maybe I was thinking of that in Turkey. But there are these places, and you're absolutely right. These are cities that are at the scale. When you think of, like, what we've done in the Rocky Mountains, when you look at NORAD, right? Like, there are giant cities. There's a giant city below the Denver airport. I don't know why, but there is a giant city below there, right? We know that. We know from recent news that there's an entire subway system that connects the White House and sensitive government needs people to a shelter that's a giant city in Maryland, a giant one, right? Like, we're talking kilometers with supplies, with electricity that can wait out a nuclear attack or a comet hitting the Earth. Yes, I think that, someone back then, and it wasn't one culture, for the amount of stonework that was done across the world, there must have been a global civilization. That, sure, the cultures were different, but they all were in contact. They all knew something was happening. They all worked together to get past it. Well, that's amazing to me.
Well, otherwise, why would they build underground cities like that? I mean, they would have no reason. What, war, local wars? Well, you know what? The local wars would have came and gone while they were still even, a fourth way building the city. So, maybe they knew something was going to happen to the earth. So they went underground to survive.
Yeah, you know what? In the American West, you have the Navajo, I believe, who talk about the Ant-Men, right? Who came up and guided their people down into these underground shelters to save them from this Thunderbird or this comet that's hitting the planet. And and then later, many generations later, when it was safe, they brought them back up again. Well, I mean, that sounds suspiciously to me like someone with a helmet and antennas, right?
Oh, it does to me.
Yeah, so who knows? But I think what's amazing. You know what I don't know, and I wish I could figure it out. But there are reports of a bird that grabs a kind of leaf and then it goes and pecks on stone, and the juice from the leaf melts the stone. And whatever that, they can't find the leaf, right? The bird seems to find it, but for whatever reason, no one's gone trying to find this, or maybe they have found it and they're just hiding it. But I wonder, when I look at Egypt and look at those rock faces or the stuff you're talking about, these underground places, don't those walls look like they might have been scooped out? Like it was soft clay at one point and they just scooped it out?
That's what I've noticed, especially the one like in Greece or Turkey. I was looking at the pictures on that recently, and it does. It just looks like somebody got in there, like if you took clay, for example, and just kind of scooped it out. I mean, but they were smart enough. They put stairs in. They created all this stuff. So whatever they had, the technology to be able to do that was still so far advanced, and that's what's scary, that they could do it then. And how much work does it cost now to build an underground city? I mean, how many people does it take? And how many years does it take? And that all the technology it's required. Right,
and wouldn't it be funny if like the entirety of those civilizations was fully electric powered and everything, and when we find things like the Baghdad battery and we think, oh, here's a primitive battery, that for them might have been a science project for their kids to learn how to make a battery and learn how to use lemon juice and copper to make electrical circuits. But for them it was not. It was just as much a summer school project. It wasn't even like their main technology. That would be just hilariously funny to me.
I think so. Hey, our time is up, and I need you to talk about your website, your books now. You might.
Okay.
You might.
I got so sucked up into it. I was. Yes. So.
Well, no. You got to write these two dates down. I have. Okay. I have the 19th available of this month, the 24th or the 26th. So and you can get a hold of me. You got a pen and paper there? At nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. And if you can come on, we can do a 2-hour show and just talk about whatever you want to talk about. I mean, when I get somebody on here, how I run my show is basically if you were sitting here, on a couch, and we were just talking, drinking a lemonade because I can't drink beer anymore. So we'd be, sitting here just,
same with me.
just talking, and having fun. And that's what I like about this show.
Yeah, I love it too. I came on ostensibly to, talk about Mythborn, but I found your subject matter and just the knowledge base that you already have gathered to be so interesting. And, I guess I should mention Mythborn really quick. It is available on Amazon. It's spelled Mythborn, Mythborn. The author is b-j-lakshman, Lakshman. And you can find out information about us at mythbornmedia.com. So just a www and mythbornmedia.com. Check out the book. It's 3 are out. The 4th is about to come out, and the audio book is out. It's gotten great reviews, 4.5 out of 5 stars. The audio book just released, and it's doing really well. Narrated by Michael Kramer. For those of you who care about audiobook talent, I'll tell you he's fantastic. And if you like stories, the basic premise I was telling everyone earlier is here's a kid training to be an assassin who finds out his master has been assigned to kill him in the next 8 days, and it starts a countdown clock. But as you start reading, it opens up these